My guests today are with Clemson Extension's Food Systems and Safety Program. Adair, Hoover, what exactly comes under that title?
So we're with Corporate Extension, and we basically deal with anything with residents for South Carolina or people making and selling food that has to do with food safety. So if you had a resident whose freezer went out and they're wondering if the food is safe in there after a few hours, we can help them figure that out. If we have people selling foods in South Carolina, we help them with the food safety aspects of that. And we offer a lot of trainings around the state that is incorporated.
Okay. And there's such a trend now in people who have these wonderful ideas and they want to do something with it. Is that something that y'all help people with?
Yes, it does. So we help with our Food2Market program, which is a food entrepreneur assistance program.
Food2Market program.
Yes.
Okay.
And so that helps people who are looking to produce and sell their products to understand what regulatory authority they would work with, what food safety parameters, what testing, what regulations that they would need to produce that product how they want to produce it. So we kind of help them through that process. We also provide some of those trainings. We also provide some of that testing that might be required as well.
So you are actually trying to help them get a product to market.
We want them to
if
do that,
possible.
yes.
That's wonderful.
Yes.
Okay, well let's talk first about gluten-free because that's something we hear so much about now.
It is. So it's been around for a long time, but we have a lot more people that are wanting to label their products as gluten-free. So even though there's not an actual logo that goes with it, there are recommendations by FDA that you have to follow a certain amount that you have to have in the product. So some entrepreneurs choose for us to test it for them. They can test it themselves if they wanted, but some choose for us to test it for them. So we have tests that will do that, and then we can provide them a letter that shows that under that result that it is gluten-free, and then they can go ahead, just like these products, and label them as gluten-free.
Okay, and then here we have honey, which I thought was pretty plain and simple, but then we have an elderberry syrup, and so what's the deal with the honey and it's being used in other things?
Honey is pretty much essentially safe on its own in raw form. But if you add an ingredient to it, so elderberry syrups, which are super popular right now, very often want to have raw honey as an ingredient in the syrup.
Instead of putting sugar, they want to
use the honey. Yes.
Okay.
And so once you start to combine those, sometimes you might get a situation where pathogens can grow. So we will test it for pH, sometimes water activity, just to make sure that it's shelf stable.
Okay. And then, Kimberly, apparently things like this, because a lot of health benefits are being purported to be associated, I think, with elderberry.
Yes.
Sometimes this could be considered a food or sometimes a supplement?
Yes, it can. It depends on how that entrepreneur decides to market that product and package that product. So we have to talk them through that process because a lot of times they don't understand that difference and the regulations behind that. So we have to say, number one, how are you choosing to market it? And also, where are you envisioning it if it's being sold in a grocery store? Is it with the pancake syrup, or is it going to be in the pharmacy area? So that can change. So we do have to work them through that process so that they understand that if they're labeling it for any reason for health claims, then it's going to go under FDA jurisdiction as well as in that pharmacy area.
And then here we have, I guess, some wonderful sauerkraut, which mothers and families have been putting up for hundreds of years.
Yes.
But a new twist on that is kimchi.
Yeah, we have several producers throughout the state that produce kimchi and other fermented products, which is really exciting. And it's not a new process, but I think we've seen it a lot more in trends of what we've have come in for testing. So there's a lot of parameters that have to go through for that production during that fermentation process. So a lot of times we have to talk with that entrepreneur and guide them through the science-based recommendations of that fermentation process so that they understand it.
Okay, and so this can end up being on a shelf or in a refrigerator, depending on how it's handled and sealed.
Exactly, yes. And if they want to sell it shelf stable, then we can give them those recommendations to be able to produce it in that.
Okay. And then this looks so pretty and cheerful, and what do we have here?
So that's a sipping vinegar or an herbal tonic, depending on whether you want it to be a supplement or a food product. It's basically a vinegar-based liquid. That particular one has a ton of herbs and spices and all kinds of things added to it. So for people who want to call it a tonic, it becomes a supplement. If you want to label it as a vinegar, a sipping vinegar, then you can be a food product. But it's a lot of fun. It's really, really tasty.
And we tasted this one, and it was vinegary, but not like drinking vinegar.
Yeah,
it was delicious. I really enjoyed it. Now, this is some pretty strange looking stuff. If this came in a package and I was asked to do something with it, I would have thought I'd gotten lost in the mail and came after 2 or 3 months of sitting in the box.
It kind of looks like that, doesn't it? It's super exciting. Kimberly and I have loved this year. We've had a couple people. It's called black garlic.
Black garlic.
It's where you take a regular bulb of garlic that you have there,
this.
and it's been fermented and then dehydrated. So it makes a milder, softer garlic, and it's really nice. It's really interesting. It's a lot of fun, I think. We've been pretty excited to figure out what to do, like how to test that, because there isn't a lot of research on that.
And we've got 2 different kinds. This one looks less intense than this one, but both of them have been processed.
They're the same thing, different companies, different, so probably one just likes the darker, softer product.
And can this one be shelf stable?
It is shelf stable, yes.
Really?
It is.
Okay. Well, I have to admit, it's very, very fragrant, but it's not as garlicky as just fresh garlic would be. Fun. I am a real coffee person, and in the summer I particularly like iced coffee. And I like cold brew coffee for that. What are some of the things I need to be concerned about or worry about, or what are you worrying about for me?
Sure.
With cold brew coffee?
Yes, cold brew coffee has definitely become very popular with our entrepreneurs and producers of all coffee products. But with cold brew coffee, most of the time the entrepreneurs producing those want to sell it shelf stable, but they don't want to heat treat it. So a lot of times we have to work through with the entrepreneurs about how to do that safely, or just recommending selling refrigerated.
Okay.
But there's also just not a lot of research-based information out there yet on cold brew, so we just have to extract from what we know of the science and the pH of the product.
Well, y'all are scientists, thank goodness, keeping us safe. Now, this is a fascinating thing.
It's called kombucha, and it's basically a fermented sweet tea.
Sweet tea?
It's just sweet tea with a SCOBY added to it, and that's that gelatinous-looking substance in front of it, and that's a symbiotic colony of bacteria and yeast. So the SCOBY goes into the sweet tea, and it causes it to ferment, and it turns into kombucha.
And there's a vinegary acid aspect to that as well.
People describe it as tart, tangy.
Tart,
yes,
tangy.
like tangy and fresh. Yeah.
And do they add fruit flavors to it sometimes? Is that why?
Yes, that's why those are there. A lot of times there might be different flavorings or fruit flavorings that are added after that fermentation process.
Thank y'all so much for what you're doing for the consumers of South Carolina, for the producers, for the entrepreneurs, and thank you for sharing this information. And if people have more questions, where should they go?
The best place to go, particularly for producers, is the Food2Market website. So we have one up there that can then contact Adair and I with our contact information and download product testing forms.
Well, thank y'all so much for coming and bringing this fascinating array of products for us.
Thank you.